Hello, this is Tammy with Tammy Creations, and tonight we will be making a heart-shaped wire-wrapped cabochon. And the finished product, prior to oxidizing, will look something like this. So you will need a heart-shaped cabochon. Mine is about just a little more than an inch tall and a little more than an inch wide. You will also need 4 lengths of 20 gauge square dead soft copper wire, and each one of these is 14 inches long. I have 22 gauge, but you can also use 24 gauges of half round dead soft copper wire. Also, I would say 24 inches of 28 gauge dead soft copper wire, some copper beads, 3 and 4 millimeters, and then your flush cutters, round nose pliers, chain nose or tweezer nose pliers, and if you have them, the nylon jaw pliers. So let's get started. We will begin with our 4 wires of 20 gauge square, and you'll find the center as best you can and make these all nice and flat. Placing the flat side of the half round wire underneath, the flat side is going to be along the pointed down and touching those 4 wires so that the half round side will be up. So I'm just gonna hold them with my nylon jaw pliers, and that will help to keep them all from bunching up, crossing over each other. So I'm going to go around probably like 8 to 10 times. And then they keep wanting to bunch up like that. I'm going to squish them down and push them together. And I'll just do a few more. And then I'm going to cut those right on top here in the center with my flush cutters. So right in the center. So those will lay down and not be seen. That's going to be the inside part. Okay. So the outside is nice and smooth. Now you're going to take your chain nose or your tweezer nose pliers and place them a little more to the right than in the center, because then we're going to bend this one up on the left to make a V shape. And if it doesn't come out quite even on each side, you can still maneuver that just a little bit with your fingers if you need to make both of those show. And I'm just going to open it up a little bit so that I can make sure my stone will fit in there. There we go. And then start pulling up along the sides. So this one is quite tall, so my wires will be going up along the side like this. To begin, we're going to turn it over to the back, and with your tweezer nose or chain nose pliers, we're going to go underneath that back wire and bend it inward. And we'll do the same on the other side, bending it inward. All right, so that's going to be the back. And then we will put our stone back in. And what we're going to do, we want to kind of cover the top with these wires. So they're going to come up the middle. The top one is going to be closer to the middle, and as you go out, they'll be a little further to the sides. So we're going to bring this top one up a bit. on both sides. And then the next one also up a little bit. And I think it's easier if you take all of one side kind of to the back and the other side to the front so that they don't get all entangled. And then pulling those to where you want them to be, like that. Okay, now you're going to bend right in the center, bend this a little bit on either side, right where they meet, and that kind of becomes the neck or the very bottom of your, what will be your bail. Okay, so what I like to do is make sure that none of these wires are crossing over each other. They're in the right order coming out of the bottom there. And then turning it over to the back, I'm going to take one of these back wires and I'm going to just start wrapping it around all of the wires. So making sure that these are in the order that they came up, which is kind of tricky. So you have to hold on to it as you go around. And then when you turn it to the other side, making sure that all of these are in line as well, and bringing it around to the other side. So this is actually kind of a tricky part, just because the wires kind of are not really connected yet and just kind of want to go their own way. So you have to just be patient and take your time going around. There we go. And trying to make sure that it's right in the center there. All right. So now we're going to turn this over and we're going to find, we're going to pull up let's just move the wires to the sides where they belong. So if you can find the side that each of these wires came from, that's a good way to start. And then in the back, we're going to have 3 wires. All right. And I like to straighten these out with my nylon jaw pliers. And these actually don't need to be this long, so I'm going to go ahead and trim them off. Okay, so they're about 3 inches long. That's going to be the bail. And when you look at it from the front, you've got, we're going to pull this one over here so that we have 3 wires on the right side and 2 on the left. And one of those 2 is the one that we were coming around with. Okay. Now we're going to start with our bail. And this is where you will need your 28 gauge wire. And I've cut about 2 feet, 24 inches. And I'm going to start wrapping by bringing the wire between the bottom 2 and then pulling the tail forward, okay? And then I'm going to come up from underneath the bottom wire and go around the bottom wire 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then just push it down with your fingernail. Then we're going to come up and over the bottom 2 wires. And we're going to do that twice. Then we're going to come up between the bottom 2 wires and go over the top 2. Between and over the top 2. And then we're going to go around each wire once, starting from the top and the middle and the bottom. Okay? We're going to keep repeating that pattern. So we do 2 wraps around the bottom 2. And then in between the bottom 2, you're going to go over the top 2, in between the bottom 2, over the top 2. And then we're going to go underneath the top one and around it, under the middle one and around it, and under the bottom and around it. All right? And we're going to repeat this until we have a little more than an inch long. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will be back. Okay, so now I've done about 1 inch of weaving, and I'm going to press that down, and then I'm going to cut off this tail that at the beginning, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap 3 times that bottom one, the bottom wire, just to make that more secure, and then I will trim that off. All right, so now to make our bail, we will just bend this over, and I like to make sure that it's right on top of the stone, so when your chain goes through there, it will be right where you need it. And I'm going to push this together a little bit closer. And the one that I was bringing around the neck, I'm going to bring around one more time so that it closes off this, actually 2 more times to close off that bottom area, so the chain will not be able to slide out. And then I'm going to trim this and tuck it inside the bail. Actually, on this one, I think we can tuck it in underneath there. There's enough room there. You can either do it there, or you can tuck it in inside the bail here. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and trim these kind of short in the back and separate them out just a little bit. And let's see. I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and I'm just going to curl these up, 2 on the sides, curl those up, around, and this one also up and around. And then what I'm going to do is kind of bend them so that they're coming along the side of the bail, so they're not sticking out this way. They're going to be more hidden. So I'm just going to bend that a little bit forward, close it up a bit better, and bend this one forward. There we go. So those are just a little bit better hidden. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring this wire around, and so we're going to bring it down and around and down and around. All right, so you're going to take this one wire that we have here, we're going to bring it down, and then we're going to hold on to it here with your right thumb, and then start your bend going this direction. Right, so that's happening like right where the top of the stone is, and then you're going to swing it back around the other direction, and we're going to trim that off so that we can make a loop here like this. All right, Now we're going to try and keep this loop from popping up. So I'm going to go underneath here. If you have a thumbtack or a needle or something, you can stick under that top wire there. It makes it a little bit easier. And we're just going to take a small piece of half round wire and stick it through. And I'm going to pull this over. Pull this end over. And then I'm going to bring the other end up and through the loop and underneath the loop and that top wire. Pull that through. I'm going to do that again. So the half round side is being pushed against the wires and the round side is up. All right, so we've got that wrapped a couple times around there. And then we're just going to trim that off on either side and tuck in the excess, whatever excess there might be. Bring this one up just a bit. And then kind of press it all down. Make that nice and flat there. So this won't be moving around. Okay, now we're going to take, let's see, we're going to take this first wire and we're going to add some beads. So let's get some, I like to use the 4mm beads. Let me find those. Okay, here we go. And we're going to string 3 beads onto this wire. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to twist it around in a circle so that we end up with a little cluster like this, little cluster of 3 beads. And then from here, I'm going to straighten this out just a little bit with my nylon jaw pliers. We're going to bring it out a little, and then we're going to make a bend here, and we're going to push it around the back like this. All right, now the next one, we're going to twist. So take your pliers to hold the end of it, and you can just twist the pendant itself. Twist it around. Oops. As many times as you want, really. I'm going to make it pretty twisty. And then we're going to follow that same path that we did with this first one. Coming in and around the back. Okay, so instead of doing a third one coming down first, we're going to go to the back and just make sure that these are coming up over the stone. And this long one we're going to push through so that it comes out the front. So you can pull it through this way. And this other one we're going to cut short and wrap around the back here. So we're going to cut it off, and then we're going to just wrap it. I'm going to go underneath here and around this wire in the back. Just pull that through and around and then press it down so that it won't come apart. Okay, but you don't see that from the front. So with the one that we've brought through, I think we will make another little twist here because there's a lot of space there in the middle as opposed to how this one was. I think this heart is elongated, whereas this one was wider, and it just changed the shape a little bit. So I'm going to bring this through and just make another curl here in the center, going that direction. And let me bring this back around. It's kind of, I think we're going to have to use some half round wire here too. So where these two come together on the side, let's put a half round piece of wire through there just to secure those, because as I'm twisting that, after I brought it to the front, it's moving around. So we'll push that through. And then we can trim that off on either end. There we go. Push it down. All right, now as we bring this through from the back, it's not gonna move around as much. So I've made one twirl or twist, and then I'm gonna turn it the other direction with my round nose pliers coming around this way. I'm just gonna trim it here so I can curl that inward. Feel like it's still a bit too long, so I'll trim a little bit more off. Make that curl there. There we go. So I think that helps. That kind of fills in that little gap a bit. Okay, so I've decided to connect these two swirls with some half round wire. So I'm just bringing it underneath both, and then I'm going to pull this through from the back, and I'm going to wrap this around both, pull it through, and once more go underneath one. Okay, that will keep that from flipping around, but I think that will make that look nice. Now it kind of covers that little hole there that was gaping. And we're going to now take this third wire, and following the pattern or the flow of these others, we're going to bring it around too. And for this one, I'm going to trim it up here and hide it behind there. So I'm going to trim it and pull it up and behind all of these wires.